How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to TheBlueShifting, and welcome back to chaosheadnoah, which I think this is going to be the final part for the Kozoe route. I'm not too sure, obviously, because like these things could be really weird. I was surprised by how long the Sena route ended up being, and I was also surprised at how short the Yua route actually ended up being, so I have no clue, but it feels like we're at a confrontation point. Basically, we're going full psycho mode on the school. Granted, I kind of get why. It's not like these two haven't been pushed to their absolute limit. It's been intentional, but yeah, it's got bad. Everyone's down for the count. People have been turned into mincemeat, including like mainline characters like Rimi. And now Suwa in his Darth spider helmet is on campus with a bunch of like the Noah 2 like mobile packs, and I think it's gonna get pretty crazy before the end. In fact, so like the third, like the melt, which is, you know, the activation of the Noah 2 is supposed to happen today or like sometime soon. I'm not sure we're going to like make it to that. I feel like we're going to have a resolution to whatever's going to happen here before that even happens. So again, if we do have a like melt scene and then a post melt scene, that might be far enough away. We might have 2 more parts left, but we'll get to that when we get to it. Ultimately though, it's like, brace yourselves. If last episode's any indication, this one's not going to be pretty. Intense is the word. I'm amazed the YouTube didn't flag it, actually, because there was lots of blood representation. However, again, it's not like it's typical. Like, usually blood is represented in video games in different ways, and in movies and TV shows also, it tends to be a lot more, like, kind of realistic, or they attempt to make it photorealistic. So, the fact that YouTube hasn't caught it probably just comes down to the fact that I'm a smaller channel, and no one's reporting it. I do indicate, of course, that like, hey, there's violence and video game violence in these videos. You know, I'm not lying to YouTube, but I've seen other people have issues, bigger issues with more basic stuff. Like one of the ones that's crazy to me is there are skits and rants by Up Is Not Jump, one of the creators I really enjoy watching, where he's done like he's used fake blood. It's very clearly staged blood. But he had to go back and edit some of his own videos and key it out to be green rather than red, so it would not catch the filter for violence. And then I've seen others who are playing video games, and the video games that get flagged for it when they don't look much more real than what we're doing here. So I don't know. Regardless of that, intense is the word. I'm very excited to see how this plays out. Although I'm not sure my stomach is, but we'll get to that. Anyway, I appreciate your patience with me as we get ramping up to the end of the year. I got some new surprises and things I'm planning to I'm looking forward to doing. Hopefully, we could do something really fun around Christmas time. I'm not sure exactly when or how or what, but I want to do something. I mostly, the biggest thing for me is the day. I could see myself doing something for Christmas itself, but I don't know, because I might have to like basically what's gonna happen is that the night of Christmas I am technically on call for work. I probably won't have to go in, but I need to be ready to, at the drop of a hat, go. So what I'm thinking I might do is a like live stream till I have to leave where literally we got basically I can just have my phone and it's like, unless I get a call, we're live streaming, but as soon as that call comes in, I'm out. And, you know, we'll like, that could be a fun way to do it. And I've got some fun things to reveal. It is a pretty big year, 10th anniversary, technically, of the channel, which is very fun. Again, it doesn't feel like I've been doing this that long. And there's definitely been times where I've taken significant breaks in that period for, you know, life reasons. But this has been a wonderful thing to have as a part of my life. Again, it's one of those things where I have a channel my size. After 10 years, a lot of people would see that as a sign of failure or a sign of something is never going to catch on. And maybe that's true, but I, again, want to do this because I want to do it, not because I expect to have tons of success. What is depressing, however, is Jack's films, which I watched. So he's done some videos, and he has like a secondary channel where he like basically tears up people who just make like mush content. And I did a spotlight on a channel this year back in July, where it's literally the whole channel is just him doing reaction videos like Try Not to Laughs, where he just re-uploads people's content with his face, doing very basic reactions to things. And he makes like a video a day or a couple videos a day. And his channel is like less than a year old. He has, at the time in July this year, he had 2.5 million subscribers and like 1 billion views. And then by November of this year, Jack's Films went back and looked at it, and he now has 4.5 million subscribers and 3.5 billion views. So that guy is making tons of money stealing other people's content. And it just makes you think, it's like, isn't that insane? Like, I'm not the most heavy, like, it doesn't take the most work to make content like mine, because technically I'm playing a video game and I'm, giving commentary on it. You could claim it's a reaction video, but I feel like it's a lot deeper than that, especially compared to something like that, where he's just like big up face, like, oh, that's crazy. That's all he's doing. No, I'm like actually talking about diving into stuff. But regardless of that, it's disheartening to see people who make just trash, who can be like literally successful and probably make millions of dollars. And it's like, it's here. I'm pouring my heart and soul to something. And like, I probably will never even get close to that. But I would rather keep my dignity than have a paycheck. It's genuinely true. I don't think I could be, I would be so depressed if my life became that. I would be so just done with everything. I would much rather work McDonald's and be poor forever than sell my dignity in that regard. But regardless, I'm just complaining at that point. The ultimate thing is I'm very happy to be here and I'm happy to have the channel. So hopefully you'll be able to join me then. Also though, speaking of disappointment, man, I'm ranting a lot this thing, but we had that announcement, like, so they've been teasing Side Venture to people who made Chaos Head and made Steins Gate, one of my favorite games of all time. They've been teasing for a while about something new coming out, and then like this year they dropped hints, and one of the hints was Steins Gate colon or semicolon, and then like a blank. You're like, oh, maybe it's a new addition to Steins Gate, right? Like maybe it's an expansion, a brand. Finally, they're going to come out with their own like original game. Because lately, they've just been like grabbing IPs and making just kind of very basic visual novels based on whatever happens to be popular at the time. Like that's, they did like the quintuplet thing. I think they did a ReZero thing. Basically, like kind of feels like they were just kind of chasing the hype of whatever was going on recently. And then they're like, oh, maybe a new Steins Gate, maybe new something in that series. I think, I was hoping for something that would focus on a different character. Maybe something set in the same universe, set the same type of period, same type of enemies. Maybe even have a crossing with some of the lab memes that we got to know and love, but ultimately was its own isolated story that involved, maybe the organization. I thought, what it would be cool to follow a person who works for the organization themselves and see kind of from their perspective why they're doing what they're doing, what motivates these people to actually work for this group when it's very clearly evil. That kind of stuff would be really fun to explore, and then maybe see them clash with and eventually join up forces with the lab mems. But no, it is a reboot, Steins Gate reboot. So they've already had Steins Gate, then they already rebooted Steins Gate with Steins Gate Elite, which was the same game with some edits, new scenes that, from what I can tell, didn't add anything to the story at all. And the most important stuff that they did is they basically took screenshots from the anime and just put it in the visual novel. I remember I tried out Elite on my own just because I was like curious what it was about, and I was so disappointed in it. I was like, I'm so glad that I played Steins Gate before that came out, because I definitely, or at least I didn't know it had existed when I started, because I would have had a much crappier experience if I had not played the original. Now they're doing a reboot, and already I saw a comparison where they're kind of like scrubbing the game, where they've cut out like lines that are, part of the original game that maybe they feel like are a little too, I don't know, chuny or too cringy. But that was kind of the point, is that Okabe is real cringy, and then he becomes endearing because despite his cringe, he's actually a decent guy who's trying to do what's right. Unlike Taku, I'm not convinced he's a decent guy. I think he's just a dude who is unfortunately so sheltered and so incel-y that he's just very creepy. Anyway, gosh darn this rant. I'm so sorry. I've just got a lot to say about all this stuff, but hopefully we have something fun to explore. So I'm done. Let's move on. I'm sorry. We'll jump back into it. If you want to hear more about this kind of stuff, I'm sure it'll come up in the future. It's just that some of this stuff, like, I finally caught up with today with the news-wise, and I was just really disappointed with it. So, yeah. Anyway, let's go on with the slaughter. I lent my shoulder to Kozuha, and the two of us left the courtyard. Oh. You know, I'm surprised it took this long. Oh, no. I'm not going to like this scene, am I? And when we got there, Sena was waiting for us. She was glaring at us with a harsh scowl on her face. Her D-sword was out, real booted, and emitting a red beam of light. Yeah, definitely not going to fight you on that one.
罠にはめられているんだ。すべて精神攻撃だ。その影響でみんなおかしくなっているに過ぎない。真の悪に気づけ。元凶を叩かなければ悪夢は終わらない。
Okay. You're not saying we're the source though, right? Because we're not the source.
ポーターだ。リュックを背負っている奴らがどこかにいるはず。そいつらが妄想攻撃を。
セナさんはコズピーの味方だよね。
Oh, this could go bad.
コズ？
真の悪って何？その影響があるから何なのかな。
What about the effect thing? She's like, I think she does want to understand.
コズピーとタクミさんを攻撃してきたゴキさんたちはね、自動的に敵だよ。だから殺すの。
I think Sena's gonna have a problem with this part.
殺したくない。
The voice in Kozupi's head wasn't making any sense. Her mind was a chaotic mess.
それが敵の思うツボなんだ。
みんなでストーカーしてくるんだもん。怖いんだもん。コズピーでなくなっちゃいそうになるんだもん。
Aww. I felt the same. The click of the camera shutters, the creaking of the wheelchair, just hearing those things made me feel like my mind itself was disintegrating. I just wanted to let myself go, surrender to that oh so enticing bloodlust, or maybe I already had.
お前たちは何と戦っているのか把握しているのか？
I didn't know who the enemy was. I didn't know anything at all, really. Was my enemy Shogun? Was it someone else? I didn't even know who was attacking who anymore. What I could say for sure, though, was that everything in this world was against me.
妄想に惑わされるな。
It's funny. Like, he's kind of adopting the whole, like, only the Sith deal in absolutes kind of logic right there. It's like, you're either with me or you're my enemy.
お前たちは自分の妄想によって殺されようとしている。
I mean, that's very true.
小杖、それ以上ディソードを使うんじゃない。負の物質がお前の心と体を侵食しているんだ。
Now that's interesting. Her sword is the first time we've ever encountered this idea that the swords might have more to them than just being a blade. It seems like it almost has a personality. And she's claiming that the negative matter is eroding on your mind and body. Why has this concept never come up before, really? Like, we've talked about what negative matter is, which is like basic... Oh, I'm just hitting the microphone now. Sorry. It's basically what fills in the gap of the delusion and makes it real. Negative matter, dark matter, antimatter, it's something along those lines. I don't think truly antimatter, because antimatter would annihilate if it contacted matter. The argument can be made that the sword is a shell that protects the matter from interacting with whatever's inside. Dark matter is a possibility, but it's most likely just extra dimensional matter, like whatever is beyond the curtain of the universe, or maybe the primordial soup of whatever is or was there before the Big Bang. Like, that's what's filling it, is some kind of, like, timeless, like, chaotic, like, not matter. It's hard to explain, but in the physics world, there's a gap there where it's just fundamentally something we can't comprehend because it exists outside of time and space, and it has no organization that we have ever, like, viewed. We've only seen the universe through the eyes of what's visible to us, you know, even through microscopes and, like, detection devices. You're talking about a substance or a theoretical substance that is so alien to the organization of things that we have, it would be difficult to define. And that's probably what they mean by this negative matter. Because, again, I think it's negative matter because as soon as it, like, if it's not held within a will, it would just evaporate basically, or just return to where it came from, rather than annihilating everything, which is what antimatter would do. Antimatter and matter are just the polar opposites and to cancel each other out.
まともに歩けなくなっているんだろ？このままだと、お前という存在が崩壊する。
セナちゃんは、コズピーたちの味方？
With a voice sounding like it was begging for salvation, Kozubi pleaded for an answer once more. I too waited with bated breath to see what Sena might say. I wasn't expecting anything, I really wasn't, but...
私は、お前たちの味方だ。
That's good. Sena answered decisively.
お前たちを攻撃している敵は、私が倒す。だから、もう妄想するな。
I was saved. I had someone on my side besides Kozupi, another friend. I wonder if Sena's implying, though, that like the people we've killed, maybe we haven't actually killed them. Maybe it's a delusion that feels very real because we're feeling it as gigalomaniacs, and it seems real, but maybe it's not. I'm doubtful. I feel like we're seeing some pretty strong evidence that it was real, but there's that tiny glimmer of hope because the fact is that the rules of, you know, delusions are very, well, unstructured would be the word. Technically, the story could decide what it wants to decide, so we'll have to see. Kozubi slowly lowered her sword.
よかった。セナちゃん、大好きなのら。
Aww. Tears began forming in the corners of her eyes. Kozupi's gaze clung to Sena like a lost puppy. What the? Without warning, Kozupi swung her D-sword. Why? Sena instinctively deflected the blow with her own. However, the shock of the attack was enough to blow her backward and she fell to the ground. Why?
コズ？何を？コズビー？
She made it clear she was on her side. Why are you trying to kill her?
違う！コズピじゃない！
Oh. Crying out in her inner voice, she swung the sword past her head and held it above Sena.
コズピじゃないよ！
Oh, yeah, she's in trouble. She swung downward with intent to kill. With only a nanosecond to spare, Sena rolled across the ground, just barely avoiding being cleaved in two. Quickly getting back to her feet, she brandished her D-sword once again.
私を殺すつもりか、コズ？
Crying profusely, Kozubi shook her head back and forth wildly in fierce denial.
違うよ！手が勝手に！助けて！セナちゃん！匠ちゃん！
Oh gosh, I don't know what we could do though. What the hell is happening to her? Seriously, what the fetch is going on?
負の妄想に取り憑かれてしまっている。
Oh gosh.
自分でディソードを制御できていないのか。
So against Kozupi's own will, she was now an indiscriminate killing machine?
コズ！ディソードを消せ！
Can you drop it or anything?
こいつ。
殺す、殺す、殺す。
Oh no.
殺す、殺す、殺す。
God, what are we even supposed to do? Because what is Taku especially supposed to do? He can't even approach her. Maybe we can for a second, but the instant we take any decisive action or potential action toward the sword, it's probably just going to swing and kill us. A voice spoke, but it wasn't her inner voice. It was Kozupi's actual voice, chanting kill to no end, the exact opposite of what her inner voice wanted.
助けて！こんなのやだ！
セナ、コズビを助けてあげてよ。
All I could do is beg from the sidelines. There's no way I could have walked into the middle of the fray.
妄想を見せて無力化を。
Oh boy. Kozubi launched an unrelenting attack. But all she was doing was barreling around with her D-sword. It was purely brutish attack with no aim. One only a total idiot would use.
殺したくないのに。セナちゃんのこと殺したくないのに。
Oh gosh. Despite her body staggering around, despite her feet drunkenly stumbling, despite her gaze not even facing Sena, Kozubi's sword headed straight to Sena without fail, doing everything in its power to rip her in two.
殺す、殺す、ぶち殺す、ぶち殺してやる。
Fetch me. It's like it's so interesting because it feels very animalistic. It feels very instinctual. But why? Why? Again, it's fueled by delusion. So it's not like, I don't think the sword itself is intelligent, not conceptually at least. I think what it does is it's taken an imprint. Because the thing is, these D-swords, I've always wondered, why take the shape of a sword? If it's a manifestation of a delusion, and specifically a delusion that comes into your hand, why a sword? I'm guessing because it's usually a response to intense stress, which means you want to protect yourself or protect somebody else, right? And maybe it's a tradition because swords have always been seen as weapons of power and authority. So it's like almost as old as humanity itself. The sword has become a symbol of like a weapon. And the weapon is what you would need in these dire situations where your levels of stress are so high, you feel like you're about to like die, or somebody you care about's about to die. And so it's like, you need something to dramatically change what's happening. And so a sword or just a weapon in general is possible. But like, why in a modern world wouldn't you ever have a D-gun? Like, why couldn't that be a thing? Or why couldn't it be a different type of weapon? Kozumi's is the closest we've seen to like another kind of weapon, because her sword almost doesn't feel like a sword. It feels more like a sharp shield. And like, while these swords are all ridiculous in their like concepts, like they've mostly been the shapes of swords, like proper, normal, regular swords. Well, like not proportionally, but they are they have the defines of the hilt with the blade. And even then, like a lot of like the flashier designs we've seen tend to take notes from what I would describe as modern fantasy or modern sci-fi, of things like from Final Fantasy or something like that. Like these swords have these very artistic and dramatic, almost JRPG-like level flares, which could be an inspiration about how the perception of modern swords is so different and flashier and romanticized compared to swords back in the day. So would a gigalomaniac having a D sword back in the like the 300s be a really fancy bronze or like iron sword, like looks really good for the time, looks very flashy for the time, but compared to what we're seeing here, basically like a very normal sword. And then you come back to all of that, and again, why take that shape specifically? And why can't they choose a different shape for their D swords? Why are they seemingly like almost latched to the personality of the person, when all the delusions tend to take form based on the will and intent of the wielder or the gigalomaniac themselves? I wonder if they've ever addressed that, or if it's just, one of those things you just have to accept and speculate on, because there are no answers. Oh yeah, anyway, the whole point to say that, so it takes the form of a weapon, right? And so maybe the reason why it seemingly has this mind of its own is because it's being real booted and it's been given like this kind of chaotic will and energy that's been poured into it, because not only is it the shape of a weapon, but now it almost has the purpose of a weapon. What is the purpose of a weapon? It's to kill, it's to strike, it's to destroy, it's to cause damage and to cause those to back down. In fact, like again, I always come back to it, but it's so brilliant. There's a great series, book of Brandon Sanderson, Warbreaker, and there's a sword in there, and the sword has been like magically created to have its own intelligence. It actually was like, it was given enough power, it became sentient in a way, but it doesn't. Because it was never like a human, it's not based on a soul or anything like that, it doesn't understand human stuff. It wants to. It desperately wants to, and it can talk to people in their minds, but it doesn't actually like understand people. All it knows is that it was given when it was like forged, it was given a command. It was destroy evil. The idea was to give it a command that would make sure that it would only be used for the right purposes. But the problem is, because it was never given like a life or education as a being, it doesn't understand what evil is. So it just kills anything it comes in contact with if it can. It wants to destroy everything around it, and everything it destroys, it assumes is evil because its directive is to destroy evil. Thus, if it destroys it, it must have been evil. Like, that's the concept. It comes at the approach of like of the concept of evil backward, where it's like, I will try and destroy everything around me, and if it is destroyed, it must have been evil because that's what I do. And it's a really fun concept of this idea of like a weapon that has will, and why that could be so deadly, because a weapon sees itself as a weapon first and not as part of humanity. You know, when if I pull a gun out and I shoot at somebody, like, I'm a human first wielding something against another person. There's a level of like, I have to conflict with my own morality and have to make that choice to commit that very heinous crime, and whether or not it's justified. I have to have that war. The gun doesn't. If your gun had to make that choice, what context would a gun have to try to determine morality? So yeah, I think Kozupi's weapon isn't intelligent. It just has its own identity kind of forced into it, where it's been real booted so forcefully. It has its identity, like, it's part of its construction. So now it sees itself as a destroyer. It just wants to kill because that's what swords do. So I think that's really fun. Anyway, lashing out at her with nothing but nonsensical attacks, her assaults continued. Each and every swing was extremely heavy, yet sharp as could be. Sena was pressed for time. Her expression grew restless. The swords mutually clashed with one another. Sena repelled her blow, breaking Kozupi's guard. But in Kozupi's counterattack, her D-sword seemed to disregard the very laws of physics themselves. Oh, fetch me. Did it just did a whoa spin? The thick blood sprayed from her slender body.
それは妄想だ。
Sena cut around and made her way to Kozupi's back. The once bloodied corpse of Sena vanished. Oh, thank goodness for that. Taking advantage of Kozupi's shock, Sena managed to pin her arms behind her back.
ディソードを捨てろ、小杖。
離せ、離せ、離せ、離せ、離せ、離せ。殺して。コズピーのこと殺して、セナシャン。
Oh my gosh. Can you imagine begging for that? Being like, feeling you're so out of control that that's the only way? That'd be so insane.
コズピーは悪くない。コズピーは悪くない。みんなが悪いんだ。こんな自分、もう見たくない。セナシャンも殺したくない。だから。
Kozupi's mind and body were at odds with one another. They had split completely in two. Her small body thrashed around violently in an attempt to break free, but her mind, she could only weep.
頼む。剣を捨ててくれ、小杖。元に戻ってくれ。私はお前を見捨てたりしない。お前は私のたった一人の友達だ。
Aww. Tears formed in Sena's eyes. She was crying. Alright, then Kozupi's arm made the strangest of movements, bending in a direction that shouldn't have been possible. A dull crack could be heard as her joint dislocated and a muted scream came from her. Is it gonna like somehow force her arm, like use muscles in ways they should never be used, dislocating her shoulder and then moving it in this like really alien, like kind of, oh gosh. Before even I knew what happened, Sena, who had been keeping Kozupi pinned, had been impaled from behind by Kozupi's boorish D-sword. Holy crap. That's insane. That's horrifying on so many levels. The edge gnawed through her, grinding into her flesh like a saw. In the blink of an eye, Sena's clothes were turning a deep crimson, gritting her teeth in pure anguish. She tried to toss Kozupi aside and put space between them, but she was too late. Kozupi whipped around and slashed her sword in a straight horizontal line. And the side of Sena's body was torn to pieces. Kozupi turned to Sena, who was writhing in intense agony, and then she thrust her D-sword directly into her.
死んじゃえ、死んじゃえ、死んじゃえ、死んじゃえ、死んじゃえ。
小杖。 まない。すま、
Oh my gosh.
死んじゃえ、死んじゃえ、死んじゃえ、死んじゃえ、死んじゃえ。
お前のこと、助けて、やれなくて。私のこと、慕ってくれたのに。私は、お前の力に、なれなくて。
死んじゃえ、死んじゃえ、死んじゃえ、死んじゃえ、死んじゃえ。
お前の SOS に、もっと、早く、気づいて、あげられたら。
Aww.
梢と話している時間が、私にとって、唯一、ほっとできる時間だった。
That's so sad.
死んじゃえ、死んじゃえ、死んじゃえ、死んじゃえ、死んじゃえ。
慕ってくれて、ありが。
死ね。
I couldn't look straight at it.
死んだの？
She was dead. Sena was dead, just like everyone else. Even though she'd been our friend, even though she could have saved me and Kozupi, Kozupi'd killed her. The sword remained pierced in our friend's corpse. Kozupi's disjointed arm hung down lifelessly. And on her face was a smile, accompanied by a waterfall of tears. What a juxtaposition.
セナちゃん、返事して。一緒にガルガリ君、食べに行こうよ。たくみさんと3人で。また、写真撮って。また。
Her heart was crying out in despair.
ねえ、たくみさん。セナちゃん、どうして返事してくれないのかな。どうして。
I don't know. Sena's dead.
殺しちゃった。殺しちゃったよ。
Kozupi fell to her knees. With one hand, Kozupi softly picked up what was left of Sena's lifeless corpse. What had once been a girl of intense beauty was now smeared from head to toe in blood, with her long black hair covering her face.
こんな、コズピーね、こんなこと望んでないのに、望んでなかったのに。セナちゃんのこと好きだったのに、大好きだったのに、お姉ちゃんみたいだなって思ってたのに。
Dang.
なんでコズピーはセナちゃんのことを殺したんだろう。なんで？
信仰の救いっすよ。
That's why. You! Before I knew it, a man in a dark spider helmet had appeared near us, holding a small handgun pointed directly at us. Dark Spider. I remember what that DQN told me before I'd killed him in a fit of rage. He said that Dark Spider had offered Nanami to him.
お前か。
さあ、何のことっすか？
He'd shot me. My leg exploded with pain. The bullet struck me right in the knee. Kozupi's D-sword began to hum. And Darth Spider's helmet was shredded like it was made of paper. It wasn't Shogun's face beneath the mask. Instead, it was the face of a young man. But that's a delusion. You can hear the machines. The man retaliated, turning Kozupi into a mess of gushing blood and broken bone. Then Kozupi's leg gave out from beneath her.
おっと、殺しはしないっすよ。コードサンプルを取らせてもらわないといけないんで。
Who was this guy? Who the hell was this bee? I couldn't stop to think. I met him somewhere before, but I couldn't remember where. How had he even gotten the hands on a gun to begin with? But I did know that it must have been him, the so-called source Sena had mentioned. Was he Shogun's underling, or was he some other enemy? I didn't know the answer to any of these things. And I didn't need to, because at the very least I knew he was the source behind everything. I wanted to kill this beast so badly. But my aching leg was suffering from an incredibly unusual sensation, and before long I couldn't even stay standing anymore. The next bullet landed on my shoulder. The impact shot sending me sprawling to the ground. Bullets dug into my flesh, and the sheer pain of the heat made me scream. Next to my arm, I dropped the knife I'd been clenching tightly in my fist. My entire body was emitting distress signals. I couldn't even tell where I was being shot anymore. I was dying. The pain was too much for me to take. The man approached me. He peered at my face and removed something odd from the rucksack he was carrying. It was some sort of headgear with more cables than I could count. This is one of the first times we're seeing this happen. The only time we've ever seen it was the picture from ISA's past, where she was in the mental hospital, where they had her on in one of these.
殺す。
何？
殺してやる。
Rising up from the ground, Kozuki swayed heavily. She was dragging her leg, almost having to force herself. She raised her blade.
こいつ、化け物かよ。
Yeah.
殺してやる。
I heard the sound of the sword cutting through the air. The interlaced perfectly with the sound of gunfire. The D-sword utterly crushed the man's body. His final breath soon dissipated, and the man's all too familiar way of speaking would never be heard again. I don't know if we can believe that. I hope so, though. He certainly deserves it. Moaning, Kozuki coughed up a splatter of blood. Her chest was dying with rich vermilion from the bullets of the dead man. And then, as if her strength had been sapped entirely, she collapsed face up onto the flower bed resting directly behind her. A myriad of black particles began to envelop her D-sword, a hulking mass of sheer mayhem, inspiring awe to all those who beheld it. The truly beautiful yet fearful blade gradually began to waver.
たくみさん、コズピンね、もうダメみたい。
Oh, man. Bearing the excruciating pain shooting throughout me, I crawled as best I could toward where Kozuki lay. Only a few moments ago, my entire body had been blazing with heat, but now I felt so terribly cold. It was like I'd plunged straight into a lake of cold winter's day. My whole being was shivering with force I couldn't stop. I couldn't feel my fingers anymore. My vision had gone blurry, too. But even so, willing forth all the strength I could muster, I stretched my hand toward the girl laying on a radiant array of brightly colored flowers. My cold fingertips met Kozupi's warm, tender fingers, desperately seeking something to cling to, wishing with all my heart to find it. I draped my fingers on top of hers and closed them. Oh, man. I found myself lying in the flower bed just like Kozupi. The stench of blood was masked perfectly by the rich scent of flowers. I felt frigid, but found warmth through the soil on my back as well as Kozupi's fingers. The sky was still very high above us, stretching as far as the eye could see. And for some reason,
ねえねえ、空がとっても綺麗だよ。まるでブチュブチュさんをたくさん散りばめたみたいで。
She was right. The sky we saw shifted hues endlessly. Just like she said, it was like there was an array of colorful beads overtaking the sky. From my pocket, I retrieved the cell phone strap that Kozupi had given me some time ago. I had only just remembered that I even had it. I took the cell phone strap from my palm and clasped her hand in her hand once more, embracing the strap in the middle. It wasn't strong enough to maintain a solid grip anymore, but it didn't matter.
コズピもあんな風に空に浮かぶブチュブチュさんになりたいな。
I bet. You can. Throw away your piece of crap body. Throw away the piece of crap world. You can be a star if you truly wish to be. If you do that, then you'll never have to worry about pain or sorrow ever again. If you do that, you'll live in peace and tranquility forever.
たくみさんも一緒に来てくれる？
Of course I will. I'll always be with you. You were the only person who didn't betray me. You were the only person trying as hard as you could for my sake, even until the very end. So I'll never betray you. I'll stay with you even until the very end.
ありがとう。あのね、コズピ、たくみさんのこと好きになって
What a phrase, what a thing to say. What the heck? I don't mind. My consciousness was fading, but I answered all the same. I realized that the hand I'd been clasping was slowly beginning to lose its warmth. I realized that the strength was slowly fading from the fingers clasping my hand. But I didn't care. I wasn't going to let go of her hand until the very end. I tried my damnedest to hold back the tears I knew would come. The sky I saw turn a pure white. All the clicky-clackies were disappearing. It's firing. I figured something had happened, but I didn't really care anymore. Relief washed over me. Relief the Kozupi wouldn't have to see the clicky-clackies die out. Clackities. I gently closed my eyes. In that very moment, time came to a stop. The entire world came to a stop. And so, within that sky, with colors as rich as those beads, Kozupi and I shone as stars floating in perpetuity. Dang, what an ending. Holy crap. That was insane. I have lots of thoughts about that. Thoughts I can't really give a ton of context to for now. I want to see the other endings before I really say everything that's on my mind about this one, but that was very interesting. There's a lot of really interesting questions that came up because of this one. I already asked a lot of them, obviously, but I think of all the routes and all the endings, including the main one, this one I feel like had the most intriguing questions about the way this stuff works, and some of the question and some of the greater forces that were moving here. Very cool. Now there's usually a after credit sequence of some kind, so we'll jump to that point and we'll see what else has to be said before I kind of give some of my final thoughts as of now. But for now, we'll wait for a bit. It's a very sweet picture to have at the end. Oh, mages. That's a cute way to do your own shout out. All right, let's see. Anything special happening? Nope, from sickness unto slaughter ending. Guess that's all it is. That is the most straightforward ending we've seen so far. Okay, well, that puts us in a very interesting position. It's kind of funny because it's there probably was about 20 minutes of content left to that, but because of my ranting, we've actually got a full video out of this in the end. It's kind of funny because I was planning to do a long video today just as a treat, or to make sure we finished it because I knew we were pretty close, but didn't realize I was that close. Although I'm still pretty happy with that. Okay. Of the endings we've seen, I will say so far, Kozupi's is my favorite. I don't know if I'm going to be giving her the crown of best girl because she's really pretty loopy land, but she's also just very sweet and very honest. And I liked the narrative of her story, and her specific ending I feel was it was horrifying, but then it was also very it gave me a lot of satisfaction in a way. It had a good arc, and it had a good, I felt intellectually satisfied with it, because that's the thing is while Sena is as a character and as a character design is probably my top favorite, her ending was very confusing and very kind of contradictory and very, I don't know, just odd. There were some things in there that were really cool, and I'm really glad I played it, but it was such an odd ending. I'm not sure I can really be satisfied with it. The Yua story, it was satisfactory, but I wasn't a big fan of the character as much, and I definitely wasn't a big fan of the concepts that they chose to explore with her. I feel like they ended up really shallow with the way they interpreted her point of view, and the way they got to the resolution was very half-baked, I would say. The ending didn't feel like an ending. It just felt like an ending to a part, but it left so many strings undone and just left hanging. I really didn't like all the plot, not plot holes, but just gaps that they really could have filled and explored if they'd given it more TLC. Kozupi's wrapped up in a good way, not as a positive way. That ending was very depressing and sad, but it had an ending that had resolution to it and meaning to it. it's kind of one of the most bad endings of all the routes, because like with the Sena ending, at least the Noah 2 was destroyed, at least presumably. In the Yua ending, like while it left so many strands undone, there's the belief and hope that Mia and Taku would be able to move forward and maybe find more solutions. Now that they had the knowledge that they had and the abilities that they had and the understanding that they had, they might be able to move forward. The Kozubi ending clearly is one of the worst endings for the narrative, because we didn't even really see the firing of the third melt, which doomed Shibuya and basically gave them everything they needed. Now, they did deny, assuming Suwa actually died, because again, that could have just been a big delusion, but assuming he died, he never got those the codes from them, which they technically needed. So they might be left like lacking for what they want the Noah 2 to truly become. Like it might not have reached its final form, and maybe whilst they're waiting for that, others might be able to step up and stop it from taking place or whatever. But it's clearly the most dark of the endings we've had so far. But sometimes the dark endings feel more complete, so I'm definitely a fan of that. All right. This puts things in my hands now, and this is where it's going to become problematic, because in order for us to get the true ending, which is what we're going to go for as the final part of the series, I'm going to play the other endings we haven't covered. I already started this process, but I'm going to have to kick it up a notch. And the trouble is that I haven't had to do a fill in the gaps section for a game like this since I started working full-time, and full-time plus. Like I get overtime pretty often now. Part of why I've struggled to have time for stuff. So I'm going to work on it, but there might be a delay. I'll announce it, but don't be surprised if I need another week to catch everything up before I can really jump into the finale, just because I don't really know. Like it seems like these alternate routes aren't too long, and since I won't be reading all the lines out loud, I should have a faster pace, but I still have to go through a few routes, and I only have so much time to do that, so I will do my best. Hopefully next week we will be able to dive into the actual like true ending, the ending of all endings, and then it'll be the end for the series. But don't be too shocked if I announce that I need a little bit more time before we're ready for that, because I have to see the other endings before I can unlock the true ending. So I hope you'd be patient with me there. Also, as we're drawing this to a close, chaosheadnoah is finally almost over. We have choices to consider. This is for Fan Friday, and Fan Friday means that we will be holding a election, essentially a democratic process, a pure democratic process about what we will play next. So I would love to hear your brainstorms and your thoughts about what you'd want to see. I will give a warning, however. A lot of times when we finish a series, like we did Grisaya before this one, there's often a clamor in the comments of the series that want us to roll right into the next one. So next after Chaos Head, next after Chaos Head would be Chaos Child, which I've heard is far superior to Chaos Head, but needs the context of Chaos Head, or else you're going to feel like you're lost, or you're going to miss a lot of stuff. So we covered Chaos Head first, and it means we're setting the stage for Chaos Child, which I've heard so many good things about, and I have no spoilers on whatsoever, so I'm very excited to jump into it. But when it goes to the general public vote, sometimes there's stuff that's on the options that are more attractive to the general community than the sequel. If we can't get the support to roll right into Chaos Child, it will probably be slotted for potential future votes, or will slip into my stack of my Wednesdays, which is becoming my cleanup days, where series that I want to continue because I'm invested in, but maybe haven't won the popular vote, are going to be put in. I just can't guarantee when it'll happen, but I assure you someday I will make sure to play Chaos Child. I really want to. It just depends on, what precedent it takes and how much I really want it. So if you have recommendations for videos for what you want to cover, or if you really, really passionately want to see us play Chaos Child, make your voices heard between now and the end of the series. And also make sure you're participating in the vote that will come out. There are 2 levels to it. First, there's kind of like a filter where I talk to the patrons and channel members. I give them their kind of own pre-vote, where I take a list of usually 6 to 8 options and just kind of filter it down to the top 3. And then those top 3 are presented to the channel as a whole, where everybody who watches the channel and who is mildly interested can put a vote for what they want to see next. But the initial list usually gets boiled down to its top 3 by those who are community members and who are channel members and who are Patreon supporters, because it gives me a chance to have a lot more of a personal discussion about what would make good selection for the channel moving forward. But again, I even draw all these from the recommendations on the Discord. So if you have a series you would like to see feature on the channel someday, even if it can't make it into the vote for this next voting arc, go to the Discord. There's a VN recommendations page. It's a nice place because it archives everything really well, and then I kind of document it on the side. So I've got a pretty good list, obviously, but just documenting it or drawing my attention to it is always good. Even if you're repeating yourself, the repeated ones often become I make note of that. So even if you know other people have recommended it, throwing your voice out for the first time and saying, hey, I think you should definitely play this, good idea. Anyway, enough rambling about that. We had so much ranting. I'm sure you're sick of me. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for your support, especially the patrons and members. I don't deserve you. I really appreciate that you come and spend time on my channel, because it's wonderful to be able to share these things, and I love being able to hear your thoughts and kind of what you think about my interpretation of things or my theories about things, and that it's something that a lot of you have chosen to keep coming back for. So I really appreciate that time you give me, because it's part of your life you're giving me. That's so valuable. I can't even fathom really how valuable that is. So I really appreciate it, because as someone who, struggles to find time to do stuff, the fact that you're giving some of your time for me means so much. So thank you. I hope that you continue to come back and that you find good things to come back for. If you need recommendations, I've got tons of visual novels. I'd highly recommend, if you haven't seen my Steins Gate playthrough, go check it out. It's from a while ago, but I really enjoyed that game, and I had a lot of fun with the science side of everything. If you're looking for something a bit more unique that you might not like, that's a bit more, not so visual novel tailored, I'd highly recommend. I've got a Baldur's Gate 3 challenge run where I make all the choices by random dice rolls, which means it's very chaotic. That's currently an ongoing series that's taking a while to come out just because of the heavy amount of editing it has to go through. I had a really fun challenge run of Knights of the Republic 1 and 2, where in the first game, I beat the game without using lightsabers or force powers, and the second game, I beat using only lightsabers and force powers, which I would say that the second one wasn't so much of a challenge. It was only a challenge at the beginning, because until I got a lightsaber, I could only use the plasma torch, which is the first weapon that you are required to wield in order to leave the tutorial. And so that was the only weapon I could use, because I said it was like a miniature lightsaber. So that was the challenging part, was getting to the first lightsaber. Once I got the lightsaber, it was pretty much, just insanely easy, really. But it's fun because I get to also show, I know this game's really well, so I got to show a lot of the secrets and little gimmicks that I've discovered that are to this day still in the game, which is really fun to explore. Little cheat codes, for example, did you know that if you have the security skill, which allows you to unlock stuff in that game, and you put 1 point in security and then never put any points in it again, for some reason, the game will let you unlock every single locked container unless it is scripted to be unable to be opened. For whatever reason. I don't know how or why that works, but it does every single time. It's amazing, because it makes it so that you don't have to invest anything into security and you just unlock everything. It's great. It's great. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me. Hope you enjoy watching more content in the future. I'd love to see what you have to say, and until next video watching me, I'll see me in next. I'll see you there.